I remember that review. Not very good anymore, is it? That was a fun one. But what can I review that I haven't done already? Maybe this album? Maybe someday, but not today. Ugh. Huh? This doesn't belong in with the...
Now we can send you back to the pits of hell from whence you... Wait a minute. This album isn't that bad.
What was I doing all that melodrama for again? You know, nu metal is pretty much the closest thing that internet music reviewing has to low-hanging fruit. It is so universally reviled, so detested. I'm actually struggling thinking of anything that is more universally loathed than nu metal. Besides Eminem's new album, of course. So you may ask, why do you review it then? And the number one answer is because it gets a lot of hits. I don't know why. I don't know whether it's the bile fascination or whether there are legitimately still nu metal fans out there who are gonna angrily type on their keyboards, be like, yo, dog, Fred Durst's a great rapper, yo. I don't know. What I do know is that the other reason to review nu metal is that I, as much as I detest it, find the genre legitimately kind of fascinating. Nu metal was huge. For about 3 to 5 years, this was the biggest genre in rock. And I so don't understand that success, and I don't really understand how this stuff struck a chord with the youth in the 90s, that I've always found myself going back to it, you know, diving down deep into the muck to try and understand. And that's why today we're reviewing one of the biggest nu metal albums that was ever released. Korn's third album, 1998's Follow the Leader. So it takes about 13 seconds of silence before you get to the first song on the album, because back when this album came out, artists would insert hidden tracks after, say, 99 tracks of just nothing. In the CD era, it was good, it was cool. On a CD player, it works. But on your computer, those dead tracks just take up space, so I deleted them long ago. The song itself is mostly okay. It's one of their better intro songs, but I would say it's really nothing special, although I do really like the weird guitar effects throughout the song. This was the massive smash hit off of this album, and debatably Korn's biggest song overall. And what can I say? It's actually a pretty good single. And as a nu metal song, it's one of the best. This track is pretty interesting musically. It's got a disco beat for one. I mean, how many nu metal songs have a disco beat in them? That alone makes it pretty interesting. And that was something that Korn, at least in the early days, could always kind of be trusted on to throw in something weird, different, and not just the same stuff that every other band in this genre was doing. Despite having a really good intro, this track is a little bit boring. It may be that it just comes after songs I like more and before another song that I like a lot more than this. But I don't know, something about this song has never done it for me. And on an album in a genre that is traditionally known for featuring white rappers failing completely and sounding horrible, we have an actual good rapper for once, because they got Ice Cube to guest on here. Unfortunately, it's only on this one song. And let me just say that while there's not really much rapping on this album, this is by far the best rapping on any Korn album. In terms of the music, this is one of my favorite songs that Korn have ever done. But lyrically, this is probably one of my least favorite. The subject matter, whining about the fact that nobody loves you and why you don't have love in your life, barely works when whiny, emo-ish bands do it. But when a band that tries to be as burly and macho and in your face as Korn whines about not being loved, it just falls flat on its face. Musically, this is one of my favorite Korn songs, but lyrically, this is probably the most messed up song on the entire album, relating a really, really screwed up story from Jonathan Davis's pre-Korn days. And one that I'm going to refrain from describing to you because honestly I'm having enough problems with YouTube demonetizing my videos as is.
Pro tip for those interested in starting a nu metal band: change genres immediately. But for those who choose to ignore that advice, my other pro tip is: do not, under any circumstances, allow Fred Durst to be featured on a track on your album. This one song nearly single-handedly ruins this entire album for me. First of all, it has Fred Durst, who alone is everything wrong with nu metal as a genre. And secondly, the lyrics are everything that people hate about this genre. The obnoxious macho-ness, the homophobia, the misogyny. It's everything wrong with this genre, and really everything wrong with the culture of the late 1990s as a whole. Oh god, I gotta get out of this now.
On every Korn album, there's a point where you have to take the CD out of the CD player, put the album down, and walk away because they have nothing more to say. And everything else you're going to find on this album is just a tired retread of something you've heard before, whether earlier on the album or on an earlier album that they put out. And this is pretty much where that point is on Follow the Leader. Now, I will say that the thing about this song is that if you put this earlier in the album sequence, or you listen to it in isolation, it's really not a bad song at all. It's just that when you listen to it in the context of the album as a whole, you get burned out by the time you even get to it. This is one of the band's relatively few attempts to get deeper than whining about being bullied or singing about being raped as a small child, and concerns some kid with terminal cancer who apparently was doing one of those Make-A-Wish Foundation things, and his wish was for Korn to see him. And it's actually one of the few songs on here where I can, along with Pretty, where I can really understand where Jonathan Davis is coming from, because that would mess you up psychologically. To have somebody who's dying want to see you. I mean, why you, you know? So I can totally understand where the song's coming from. Musically, it's pretty good. I like this bit in the middle especially.
Please don't touch my teeth. Don't touch my teeth.
This noisy bit is pretty cool though. This is one of those songs where I like the music. In fact, musically, it's probably one of the better tracks on here, but the lyrics are, oh man, these are some of the nastiest lyrics this band has ever done, and this is one of those songs where there's no way you could ever play this on the radio, because if you did, you'd have to bleep out pretty much the entire song, or just play it as an instrumental track. There's no way that you would be able to pull it off, and this is just too offensive. And we end the album just like we did last time, with Jonathan Davis fantasizing about killing someone and then having sex with them. Keep it classy, Korn. Keep it classy. Now, the instrumentation is pretty good. They use the bagpipes, a really interesting addition to their sound, and one that I wish they used a whole lot more than they did. But, like I said, the lyrical subject matter is tired and done already. And while it may have been edgy in 1998, and I do sort of doubt that, I mean, you want edgy singing about making out with dead people, but you should go back to Alice Cooper in 1973. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, there's a hidden track. After a couple of minutes of dead air and Korn messing around in the studio, they go into a pretty cool cover of Cheech and Chong's Earache My Eye. Although I do have to say, I will always prefer the original. It's just how I am with covers. For the record, it's not even because it's Korn. It's just my attitude towards covers. All in all, Follow the Leader is about as good as nu metal gets. I don't love this album by any means, but it's not bad, with the exception of that one song with Fred Durst in it. Musically, I actually like a lot of what's on here. The weird guitar noise, the really good hip-hop beats, and just the production is some of the most interesting and weird that Korn ever did. Now, as I mentioned in the last video, I will never get bands like this, and a lot of it is the lyrics. I will never get this band lyrically, and there are several reasons for that, but I think at the end of the day, it boils down to, I am both, nowadays I'm too old for this kind of stuff. You know, I'm not an angsty teenager anymore, and this doesn't, angsty teen or preteen rather, and this doesn't speak to me the way it might have if I discovered this stuff when I was that age. Secondly, this kind of music isn't of my time, you know, I came up later on when things had changed, the circumstances were different, and part of my inability to relate to this music, I think, has to do with the fact that I oftentimes don't really understand where the people in this era were coming from. And this was a time period where it seems, at least in hindsight, now I'm sure there were artists who weren't like this at the time, it seems like almost all the music from this period that I've ever heard is kind of just whining about things. And while a little bit of whining about things is okay, it's not all that I want in music. And that's an area where a lot of stuff from the late 90s kind of falls flat. At least the rock stuff, maybe not the pop as much. Now, I will also admit that in terms of that whininess, I actually don't mind it when Korn whine as much as I do a lot of other bands. For whatever reason, Jonathan Davis has always seemed much more genuine than most of your other nu metal singers, so I will give him a pass for some of the more questionable lyrics on Korn albums. But all in all, I still have mixed feelings on this kind of music. I'm never going to truly like this kind of music, but I can at least recommend this album either as a guilty pleasure, or, you know, if this was stuff that you listened to when you were a kid, you legitimately like this, you think it's a good album, you know, who am I to tell you it's not a good album? In a lot of ways, technically, it is a good album. But in any case, I will see you guys in the next review. We'll be getting back to the Overblown album series. It'll probably be another 80s album, but not the one I was talking about before. So until then,